She missed the most important exam of her life to keep a bleeding woman alive. 3 days later, her neighborhood shook as a private helicopter came for her. Tiana Mercer didn't expect her whole world to flip before sunrise, but that's exactly what happened on that stretch of road outside Bakersfield, California. She had been awake for nearly 20 hours, running on cold leftovers and cheap coffee, driving her old Honda down the empty 2-lane road she took every night after studying at the Kern Medical Library. Her eyes were heavy, but her mind was full of medical flashcards she'd reviewed again and again, hoping they'd stick long enough for the exam she had in the morning. She kept the window slightly open, just to stay alert. The night air rushed in, brushing against her face and making her blink a few extra times. She whispered to herself, "Come on, Tiana. Just a few more minutes. You've done harder things." But right as she rounded a curve, her headlights caught something that didn't belong on that quiet road. A car. Not parked, not pulled over, but smashed into a guardrail with the driver's door half open. Tiana's foot hit the brake before she even processed what she was doing. Her tires screeched, and her heart started pounding in a way that snapped the exhaustion right out of her body. She grabbed her phone, shoved open her door, and jogged toward the crashed vehicle. "Hello," she called out. "Can you hear me?" Her voice echoed more than she expected. That scared her. She stepped closer, and that's when she saw the blood. Thick streaks across the inside of the windshield. Glass scattered across the seat and the pavement. The metallic smell hit her first, sharp and cold. Someone was inside. Tiana leaned in and saw a woman slumped forward, her blonde hair tangled with bits of glass, her breathing uneven. She whispered, "Ma'am, can you hear me?" The woman stirred just enough to let out a soft, painful sound. Tiana's training took over. She reached in gently, checking for responsiveness, trying to assess her injuries in the dim glow of her headlights. Even with the limited light, she recognized the signs. Head trauma, possible concussion, maybe worse. The deep cut across the woman's temple was still dripping, running along her cheek and into her collar. "Stay with me," Tiana said. "I'm going to help you, okay?" The woman blinked slowly. "Please don't leave me," she whispered, barely audible. "I'm not going anywhere," Tiana said softly. "I promise." She grabbed her phone and called 911, giving her location as clearly as she could despite her shaking hands. She kept talking to the woman, trying to keep her awake, asking simple questions, anything to gauge her awareness. "What's your name?" Tiana asked. The woman took a moment, her lips trembling. "Renee Harrington." That last name hit Tiana like a jolt. Harrington, as in the Harrington family, the billionaire tech founder from Los Angeles. She had seen the couple on TV once, accepting an award for humanitarian work, but she didn't have time to think about any of that now. Renee's breathing was uneven. Her pulse, though present, felt weak. Tiana pressed a hand gently against her neck to stabilize it. "Help is on the way," she said. "Keep looking at me." Renee's eyes fluttered. "I'm scared." "I know," Tiana whispered, "but you're not alone." Tiana reached into her backpack, pulling out a clean towel she always carried for late-night shifts, and wrapped it carefully around Renee's head, applying light pressure to slow the bleeding. It was the best she could do with what she had. As the minutes passed, Tiana felt her own fear rising. She knew enough about head injuries to understand how serious this was, and even though she tried to stay calm, one thought pushed its way into her mind. If help didn't arrive soon, this woman might not make it. But she didn't let that fear show. She stayed focused, steady, present. Sirens finally echoed in the distance, faint at first, then growing louder. Tiana exhaled for the first time in what felt like forever. But she didn't realize yet that the choice she made on that dark road would change the entire direction of her life. By the time the paramedics arrived and took Renee Harrington away, the adrenaline that had kept Tiana sharp began to fade. She stood on the side of the road, arms wrapped around herself, watching the ambulance lights smear across the dark sky. One medic had paused before climbing in, turning back to her with a look that was half shock, half respect. "If you hadn't stepped in," he said, "she wouldn't have made it. You saved her life tonight." Those words should have filled her with pride. Instead, they landed like a stone in her stomach. Because the moment the ambulance pulled away, the reality she'd been trying to ignore finally hit her. She had an exam in just a few hours. The exam, the one that determined whether she kept her scholarship. Without it, her entire future would slip right out of her hands. And she knew she wasn't going to make it on time. She drove home with her hands still shaking. Her neighborhood, an older area in Bakersfield with modest single-story houses and cracked sidewalks, was quiet when she pulled in. The streetlights flickered as she parked in front of her mother's house, a place she helped pay for with her part-time income and loans. Inside, the living room lamp was still on. Her mother, Janet Mercer, was dozing on the couch with a book on her lap. When the door clicked shut, Jan's eyes opened instantly. "Tiana, baby, you okay? You're home late." Late wasn't unusual, but the way Tiana stood there, frozen, drained, clothed, stained with someone else's blood was. Her mother jumped up. "What happened? Talk to me." Tiana took a breath long and shaky. "I helped someone. There was an accident. A woman was hurt bad." Jana stepped closer. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm fine," Tiana said. I did everything I could." Janet gently touched her arm. "Sit down." Tell me what happened. Tiana sank into the couch and explained everything. Finding the car, the injuries, the bleeding, the 911 call, the paramedics. Her mother listened without interrupting, her expression tight with worry but filled with pride. You did the right thing, Janet said quietly when she finished. Tiana nodded, but her eyes drifted to the clock on the wall. My exam is in 3 hours. Jane closed her eyes for a moment, letting out a slow breath. She knew how much Tiana had sacrificed to get where she was. Years of grueling work, sleepless nights, skipped meals, and constant fear of falling behind. You're still going to try to make it? She asked gently. Tiana looked at the dried blood on her sleeves. She felt the ache in her muscles, the sting in her temples, the overwhelm clawing at her chest. I don't know if I can, she said. I don't even know if I should. Her mother took her hand. You saved someone's life. That matters. I know, Tiana said softly, but saving someone won't pay for med school. It won't convince my professor to give me grace. And I can't lose that scholarship. Janet didn't have an answer for that. She squeezed Tiana's hand tighter. After a moment, Tiana forced herself up. I need to at least try. She changed clothes, washed her face, tied her hair back, grabbed her keys, and walked out the door with her mother, watching her silently from the hallway. The drive to campus felt longer than usual. Bakersfield College's Health Sciences building stood under bright lights as dawn crept in. The parking lot was nearly empty. Students trickled in one by one, some holding coffee, some holding stress, all preparing for the same exam she was supposed to be studying for. But Tiana didn't walk in with them. She stood by her car, staring at the building, feeling the weight of the night crushing her shoulders. She whispered, "Please, just let this work out." But hope wasn't enough because as soon as she stepped into the exam room and saw the clock on the wall, her heart dropped. She was too late. The proctor, Professor Halden, looked up sharply. "M. Mercer, the exam ended 20 minutes ago. You cannot enter." "I had an emergency," she tried to explain. "A woman was hurt and he raised the hand. Rules apply to everyone. But I helped save her. I did CPR, stabilized her neck, stopped the bleeding. The paramedics. This isn't the time." His tone was cold. "Final. There are no makeups." Tiana stood there speechless, her throat tight. She'd given everything, sacrificed everything, and it still wasn't enough. She walked out of the building with her chest burning, her vision blurry. She wanted to scream, cry, collapse, but she didn't do any of that. She just walked to her car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at the dashboard. Her world felt like it was collapsing in slow motion. But she didn't know that someone else was fighting for their life in a hospital bed, thinking about the young woman who refused to leave her side. The morning after the exam disaster felt heavier than usual. Tiana woke up with a tightness in her chest, the kind that made it hard to take a full breath. She lay staring at the ceiling of her small bedroom, replaying the night again and again. The smashed car, the blood, the frantic pressure she applied to Renee's head, the cold refusal from Professor Halden. She dragged herself out of bed and went to her nursing clinical shift at Adventist Health in Bakersfield, hoping work would distract her. But even during patient check-ins and chart updates, her mind kept drifting back to that moment she first saw Renee's car half-C crushed against the guardrail. That sight was burned into her memory. Late that afternoon, as she was preparing discharge paperwork for an elderly patient, her phone buzzed on the counter. It was an unknown number. She stepped into the hallway and answered. "Hello?" A man's voice came through, quiet but steady. "Is this Tiana Mercer?" "Yes, this is Dr. Sean Patel from Mercy Southwest Hospital." He paused before continuing. "You're listed as the individual who assisted a patient last night, Renee Harrington." Tiana straightened. "Is she okay?" "She's stable for now." He said she had a severe concussion, a fractured rib, and significant blood loss. The head injury was serious, very serious, but the care you provided before EMS arrival played a major role in her survival. "We wanted to make sure you were informed." Tiana didn't speak right away. She felt something warm gather behind her eyes. Relief, fear, something complicated. "Thank you for calling," she finally said. "One more thing," Dr. Patel added. "Her family has been trying to reach you. They're very grateful. Expect a call." But Tiana wasn't sure she wanted one. She didn't help Renee to get praise or attention. She helped her because it was the right thing. She hung up and leaned against the wall for a moment, letting everything sink in. She saved someone's life, but saving her had cost her the only thing she'd been working toward for years. Work ended around sundown. She drove home slowly, her mind drifting back to that night once again. She remembered the way the moonlight hit the twisted metal of the car, the strange quiet of the road, the faint groan that made her heart jump. When she first approached the accident, she could barely make out the shape inside. She remembered calling out, "Ma'am, can you hear me?" and hearing only a broken whisper in return. She remembered the glass crunching under her shoes as she approached the door. She remembered how cold Renee's skin felt when she touched her cheek. That scared her more than anything. The cold "Tiana," Renee had murmured at one point, barely conscious. "Don't leave." That sentence replayed over and over. Even now it stuck with her, pulling at something deep inside. Back in her room that night, Tiana sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop open, trying to email Professor Halden again. Her message was long, detailed, respectful. She explained everything as clearly as she could, hoping he might find an ounce of mercy. But his reply came 10 minutes later. Ms. Mercer, I cannot offer any exceptions to our policy. Missing the exam results in automatic failure. That was it. No sympathy, no acknowledgement of what she'd done. She shut her laptop and stared at her blank wall. Her mother knocked softly before stepping in. Baby, any luck? Tiana shook her head. I failed. Her mother came over and sat beside her. You saved someone. That's bigger than one test. But it's not bigger than med school, Tiana whispered, fighting to keep her voice steady. They'll take my scholarship. I'll have to retake the course. I don't know how I'm supposed to keep going without falling behind. Her mother placed an arm around her shoulders. You've come this far and you're not alone. Something good will come out of this. Maybe not today, but someday. Tiana wanted to believe that. She tried to. She closed her eyes and replayed the accident again. Every sound, every breath, every second she fought to keep Renee awake. She didn't know why, but each time she replayed it, she felt the same thing. She wouldn't change a single decision she made that night, but life had a way of moving faster than she expected, and something was about to hit her life harder than she could imagine. Tiana didn't know it yet, but the moment she stepped out of her car that night, her entire future hinged on the choices she made in the next few minutes. The memory stayed sharp in her mind, every detail refusing to fade. She remembered jogging toward the wreck, the gravel biting into her shoes, her breath loud in her ears. The night was dark, but her headlights stretched just far enough to reveal the tangled mess of metal and broken glass. She pushed the door wider and crouched next to the woman inside. Ma'am, can you hear me? She said again. A soft sound came from the woman, barely more than a breath. My head. Okay, I'm here. My name is Tiana, she said, keeping her voice steady. I'm trained. I'm going to help you. All right. The woman blinked, her eyes glassy, unfocused. Blood dripped from a deep cut above her eyebrow, sliding down her cheek in thin, dark streams. Her blonde hair stuck to her face in streaks. She looked terrified. Tiana leaned in closer. What's your name? The woman swallowed shakily. Renee Harrington. Hearing that name still felt surreal, but in that moment, Renee wasn't a billionaire's wife. She was just a person dying on the side of a road. Okay, Renee, Tiana said softly. I need you to stay awake. Look at me. All right. Renee winced. It hurts. Everything hurts. I know, but I'm here with you. Tiana pulled off her sweater and folded it, pressing it gently against the open wound on Renee's temple. The blood soaked through fast. Too fast. She needed more pressure, but not too much. Head injuries were dangerous. Can you move your fingers for me? She asked. Renee tried. Her hand twitched weakly. Good. That's helpful. Tiana's breathing stayed even, but inside panic pushed at the edges of her control. She forced herself to stay focused. She checked for any airway obstruction, making sure Renee was swallowing without difficulty. She monitored her breathing shallow. Renee, stay with me, okay? Tiana said again. Renee's voice wavered. Please don't leave. Never, Tiana whispered. Not until help gets here. Suddenly Renee flinched and groaned. Her eyes rolled slightly, then drifted closed. No, Tiana whispered, shaking her shoulder carefully. Renee, open your eyes. Look at me. Talk to me. Renee struggled. I'm so tired. I know, Tiana said, brushing the hair out of her face. But you have to fight. You have to stay awake. What's the last thing you remember before the crash? Renee blinked hard, trying to focus. I was driving back from Santa Clarita. I felt dizzy. I thought it would pass. Tiana's eyebrows tightened. Dizzy? How? Like the road tilted. She had a head injury before she even crashed. That meant swelling. That meant time was running out. I'm calling for help, Tiana said, reaching for her phone. Her hands trembled as she dialed. Stay awake. Look at me, Renee. The dispatcher answered, and Tiana gave every detail she could. Location, visible injuries, level of consciousness. Her voice stayed level, but her heart thudded fast against her ribs. She needed them there now. Help is on the way, the operator said. Thank you, Tiana whispered before hanging up. She turned back to Renee, who was watching her with hazy, terrified eyes. You're not going to die tonight, Tiana said softly. Not on my watch. Renee's lips quivered. Why? Why are you helping me? Tiana gave a small smile. Because someone would have helped me if I were in your place. That's how it works. But it's dark. You're alone. I'm not scared. Tiana lied. Renee tried to breathe deeper but winced in pain. Her chest hitched awkwardly. Tiana's eyes darted down. A fractured rib. Maybe more. Can you tell me if it hurts when you breathe? Tiana asked. Yes, right here. Renee pressed the hand to her left side. Tiana gently lowered her hand. Okay, but don't move. Just focus on me. Minutes felt like hours. Tiana kept pressure on the wound, checked Renee's pulse again and again, whispered encouragements to keep her conscious. Renee's breathing grew more shallow. Her skin turned cooler. Tiana swallowed hard. You have to stay awake. Renee, listen to me. Who's the first person you want to see when you get out of the hospital? Renee blinked. My husband Grant, he'll be so scared. Good. Then stay awake for him. Look at me. Suddenly, Renee squeezed her hand weakly. I don't want to die. You're not dying, Tiana said, her voice breaking for the first time that night. You hear me? You're not. I'm not letting that happen. That's when the sirens hit her ears. Louder, closer. Relief washed over her so fast her knees nearly buckled. Lights splashed across the road. The ambulance screeched to a stop. Paramedics ran toward them, dropping equipment as they approached. One knelt beside Tiana. What's her condition? Tiana gave a rundown. Injuries, consciousness, vitals, what she stabilized, how long she'd been bleeding. The man stared at her. You're a student? Yes. He shook his head, shocked. You did all of this alone? Yes. Well, you probably saved her life. Hearing it again didn't make it feel more real. She just stepped back as they lifted Renee onto the stretcher. Before they closed the ambulance doors, Renee forced her eyes open one more time. You saved me, she whispered. Tiana swallowed hard. Just get better. The doors shut and the ambulance sped into the night. But Tiana didn't realize that saving Renee Harrington didn't end there. Someone else had been watching, and the consequences were only beginning. The morning after the crash, Tiana felt like she was moving through water. Every sound felt muted. Every step felt heavier. She sat at the edge of her bed, running her fingers over the dried scratches on her arms from the shattered glass. Her phone buzzed with messages from classmates asking how the exam went, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. Her future had slipped through her hands while she was kneeling on a cold road, trying to keep a stranger alive. By the time she made it downstairs, her mother was already in the kitchen, packing lunch for her younger brother. The smell of toast and eggs usually made the house feel warm. Not today. Tiana, her mother said softly. Come sit. She joined her at the table, pressing her palms against her own forehead. Did you sleep? Her mother asked. A little. You're thinking about the exam? Tiana didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her mother sat beside her. Did you hear anything back from your professor? Tiana pushed her phone across the table. Her mother picked it up, read the message, and sighed. He really said that? Yeah, Tiana whispered. No exceptions.